Part 5. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin G. Bayet. Chapter 42. After his father left, Yejing did not return to his room to practice, but lay on the sofa with his head tilted, took out his mobile phone, and exuded a lazy aura. He went to the local website and located the address in Gukhan. He wanted to know how much spiritual stones a house of 100 square meters in the city could be worth. "Dad, I'm sorry, I'm really short of money," Yejing murmured. "No matter what world or what the world is like, the price of a house will never go down. Anyway, his father is gone, and he is going to graduate and leave Gukhan and not come back. Why keep the house? It's better to sell it as soon as possible and exchange it for a large amount of spiritual stones for practice. He is alone, and it is a waste to live in such a big house, and he can just rent a small room for a few months after selling it. There is an approximate price on the local housing listings." Yejing entered the keywords of his own house, and then several similar housing listings appeared. City Garden Community, high-rise elevator building, 130 square meters, near primary and secondary schools, now for sale at a low price, only 200,000 spirit stones, negotiable. North City Phase 3, 17th floor, 110 square meters, 3 bedrooms and 1 living room, north-south ventilation and facing the sun, excellent price, 230,000 spirit stones for sale. Xuanhuan Phase 2, developed in cooperation with the Pioneer Guild, 122 square meters, 180,000 spirit stones, 10% discount for pioneers. Hiss. Yejing took a breath of cold air, his eyes were full of sheep symbols, and there was only one thought in his mind. Get rich. No more to say, "I'm sorry, Dad." He turned around and rushed into his dad's room, rummaging through the boxes and cabinets. "Where's the property certificate? Where's the property certificate?" He turned his dad's room upside down and found all the private things. Even the book marked with 18 banned books was found in a large box, but the property certificate was not found. Yejing sent a message to his dad in confusion. "Yejing, Dad, when I was cleaning the house just now, why can't I see our house property certificate?" After a while, Dad sent a screenshot over, and the screenshot showed a hand holding the house property certificate. "Yejing, you took the house property certificate with you when you went out for a trip?" "Dad, there is no way, the son knows the father, and the father knows the son better." Yejing said, "You are awesome." This was his only chance to get rich, but it was destroyed by his shrewd father. After cleaning up Dad's room dejectedly and restoring it to its original state, he returned to his room with a box of 18 forbidden books. "I'll just take a look, maybe there are some martial arts secrets in it." Yejing sat cross-legged on the bed, holding a book in his hand, staring intently at the unbearable picture on the cover. He was moved, and just as he was about to open it, the phone next to him rang, and it was a Super Q boost sound. "Huayu, where is my mom?" Angry, angry. The chicken flew away and the eggs were broken. Yejing's heart trembled. "Dad, you informed me and Aunt Hua, but you didn't inform Huayu. Do you know that this could cost someone's life? What would Huayu think? My mom eloped with someone else, and I was the last one to know." "Yejing, did she go out to buy groceries?" Confused. "Huayu, did she leave me a letter when she went to buy groceries, and took the household registration book with her?" Blood-dripping knife. Yejing also remembered at this time that when he was looking through Dad's room just now, he also didn't see his household registration book, and a drop of cold sweat crossed his face. "Dad, are you sure you want to make such a big deal? Isn't it just going out for a trip? Why did you bring the household registration book with you? Aren't you going to get married?" Damn. He thought of his dad's ability to act. It was estimated that the two of them were already standing at the door of the Civil Affairs Bureau to get the marriage certificate, and it was too late to say anything. In fact, he didn't care if his dad found him a stepmother. Anyway, the child was grown up, and no matter what kind of stepmother he found, he couldn't control himself. What he cares more about is that, since Dad and Aunt Hua have obtained the marriage certificate, then Hua Yu has become a family member, right? Yejing typed with shaking hands, "Duh Hua, what month is your birthday?" "Hua Yu, December, and don't call me Duh Hua." Yejing smiled, "Good sister, call me brother, I was born in May." "Hua Yu, he, just give up, it's impossible in this life." Yejing couldn't help but frown after a series of he-he's. He also knew that this was impossible. No matter what changes happened to the relationship between Dad and Aunt Hua, the two of them would not change. Although he was holding a mobile phone in his hand, his eyes were always on the book in his hand. His eyes were looking at the exposed cover, but inexplicably he thought of Hua Yu's figure in his mind. It was strange. He said, "Why don't you cut your hair short, it will be better this way." "Hua Yu, why?" "Yejing, then we can be brothers." Ha 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 ha. Rough personality, washboard figure, wearing sportswear every day, if you cut your hair short, wouldn't you be my good brother, Yejing? On the other end of the phone, Hua Yu, wearing cute pink pajamas, was looking in the mirror, her fair little hands gently stroking her black and beautiful long hair, thinking that I still look better with long hair, and I don't know why Yejing thinks short hair looks good, she has no taste. Then, she saw the message sent by Yejing. "So we can be brothers." Hua Yu lowered her head stiffly and looked at her chest. Instantly, her originally rosy face turned pale with anger, and her whole body trembled. She was so smart, could she understand what Yejing meant? Isn't this just saying that she cut her hair like a boy? Damn it! Hua Yu bit her red lips hard, gnashed her silver teeth, and kicked the wall with her bare white feet full of anger. The muffled sound reached the other side of the wall, Yejing's room. Unlike Hua Yu, Yejing's stomach hurt from laughing, especially after hearing the muffled sound, he couldn't stop laughing. Sure enough, it's fun to be naughty for a while, and it's fun to be naughty all the time. Let me see what the Hua is doing. Hua Yu, it's gone. Yejing was confused, what's gone? The breasts are gone? No, there weren't any in the first place. Hua Yu, the spirit stone is gone, and the crystal core is black. Bang. Yejing was stunned, his palm loosened, and the phone fell to the ground. I want to cry but I can't. It's not like this, right? Isn't it just a joke? Is it so cruel? He immediately apologized and pretended to be good. He could lose his moral integrity, but he couldn't lose the spirit stone. Yejing, sister. My dear sister. I was wrong. Hua Yu, didn't you say I was a boy? Why did you call me sister? Yejing, brother. Hua Yu, he, it's useless for you to call me dad. Everything is over. You have been blacklisted. You have been deleted from the friend list. Yejing looked ashen. This time it's over. My good brother deleted me and the spirit stone is gone. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin Ji Bayet. Chapter 43. Yejing didn't expect Hua Yu's reaction to be so violent. Not only did he hack the spirit stone, but he also deleted all his Super Q friends. This gave him no chance to give in. He couldn't go next door and knock on the door. It's not like a sheep entering a tiger's mouth digs its own grave. Look for an opportunity to apologize next time. Yejing thought about never making fun of Hua Yu's figure again. The price was too high. Thousands of spiritual stones were wasted just because of his words. The pain was heartbreaking and extremely uncomfortable. He was so uncomfortable that he was not even in the mood to read the notebook. He threw the notebook aside and took out today's loot from the storage bracelet, which was also a bracelet. The gangster snatched this from Wang Hao's hand, and then snatched it from him. Let me see what Wang Hao has in his little vault. Ye Jing put his consciousness into the storage space, and what he saw was not piles of spiritual stones, but green spiritual grass. After counting the styles, there were 3 kinds of spiritual herbs, but unfortunately he didn't recognize them at all. It's useless. You can't just throw it into synthesis to try your luck. That would be too luxurious. Although these spiritual herbs are no different from weeds in his eyes. But in Wang Hao's eyes, the value is different. This is the herb I picked in the forest. I will sell it to Wang Hao sometime. Ye Jing hypnotized himself. That's right, this is not a stolen spiritual grass. I spent several hours picking it. Wang Hao definitely wouldn't mind spending some money to keep this batch of herbs. There was a pile of spiritual stones placed under the spiritual grass. Ye Jing counted them and suddenly looked disappointed. There were only more than 1,000. Isn't this too little? Did he replace all the spiritual stones with grass? Apart from spiritual stones and spiritual herbs, there was only a bunch of worthless miscellaneous items left in Wang Hao's storage bracelet. A Starry Sky Internet Cafe membership card. You can get a chicken ancestor coupon for 2 people. Several erotic novels. A pair of black stockings and a roll of toilet paper. He. Ye Jing expressionlessly transferred the spiritual herbs and spiritual stones into his storage bracelet, and then threw Wang Hao's storage bracelet directly into the trash can. I wanted to resell this bracelet, but now. Sorry, I'm afraid of getting my hands dirty. Question: after receiving unknown stimulation, what will a young teenager do in a lonely night? Answer: take off your clothes to sleep. Turn off the lights. Shining starlight entered the room, and the sky was filled with black. Countless stars broke through the night curtain and poked out. They were bright and clear, and the distant stars were shining. Although there were countless stars in the field of vision, some of them even overlapped together. That's just an illusion. In the distant universe, the distance between 2 stars is very far, so far that they can only look at each other lonely. However, there are not only stars in the field of vision, there may also be fragments of a certain planet shining brightly. In the quiet night, Huayu was practicing, Wang Hao was preparing medicine, sitting quietly on the hospital bed, and the old teacher walked out of the house with a gloomy face. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. A deafening sound came suddenly. The roaring sound is uninterrupted, as if the god of thunder is playing drums. The sky is falling apart. In the dark sky, a rain of fire compared with the starlight suddenly descended. Light up the whole sky. The silent city was broken. Can we let people sleep? Ye Jing suddenly opened the quilt, his face full of anger. He was woken up by the inexplicable noise. The interrupted sleep made him feel restless. He turned over and got out of bed, opened the window and wanted to curse. People who make noise. Who can be so heartless in the middle of the night? Damn it! Before Ye Jing could finish speaking, he saw the scene outside the window. He was stunned and stared blankly at the sky. In his dark eyes, the sky was filled with fireworks. In the sky, countless fireballs fell from the sky and landed directly on Guken. No, no. Ye Jing rubbed his eyebrows and closed his eyes. I must have been sleepy and dazzled. How is that possible? There is a sky in the lonely city. How could the fire demon invade directly? Impossible. He waited for a few seconds, then opened his eyes and looked out the window again. Huh? What about the marquee? Where is the sky of my great city? The canopy that had been covering the entire Guken was actually closed. Damn it, something big happened. Ye Jing froze on the spot, staring blankly at the red sky, and couldn't help but murmured that he had now accepted this reality. Countless fire demons directly crossed the sky. Night attack on the Lonely City. This is the first time since the founding of the Lonely City that aliens have invaded the city on such a large scale. The consequences are disastrous. There are hundreds of thousands of people in the entire isolated city, but practitioners only account for 1%, and the rest are all ordinary people. How do ordinary people fight against aliens? There is no way to fight against it. We can only wait to die. In other words, there are hundreds of thousands of people in Gukhan who are on the verge of death. This is to destroy the city. Yejing didn't dare to think about it anymore. He was afraid of scaring himself if he continued to think about it. There was no time for him to think too much. Because the rain of fire is already in place. The place where a huge fireball landed was exactly where Yejing was. The next second, there was an ear-splitting sound, and the roof of the building collapsed. Countless gravel fell down, and the dust was mixed with hot flames. A tall figure slowly appeared. The fire demon rides on the face. Can you please let me rest for a while? Yejing sighed and took out the dog-beating stick from his storage bracelet. He had not rested from morning to night today. He thought of having a good sleep at night and sleeping until dawn. Who would have thought that he would let the fire demon ride on him? I feel so embarrassed, so uncomfortable. Ahem, ahem. Another familiar voice sounded next to Yejing. He turned his head in surprise and saw Huayu a few meters away. Yejing and Huayu are neighbors. Their rooms are next to each other, separated only by a wall. However, the fire demon smashed down from the roof of the building and happened to hit the middle of their home, destroying the wall. Ahem, why did the fire demon show up at home? Huayu also saw Yejing and asked with her eyebrows furrowed. The dust was so heavy that she didn't see the fire demon at all for the first time. She only noticed it from the alien aura permeating the air. Let's not talk about this first. Please put on your clothes first. Yejing just glanced at the flower language and turned his head away. It was snow white, and he didn't dare to look at it more. It was easy to be harmonious. Ah! Only then did Huayu remember that when she was practicing, she felt very awkward wearing pajamas, so she took off her pajamas, exposing a large area of skin, and only wore underwear to absorb the spiritual energy. However, who would have thought that something like this would happen and her body would be exposed directly from the room? She hurriedly took out a sportswear from the storage bracelet on the side and put it on, then put on a pair of sports shoes. The whole process was quick and fast, taking less than 2 seconds. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin Bayet. Chapter 44. Surrounded by powerful enemies outside and spies inside, Gukhan is in chaos. This small broken city attracted the competition of Changtian Group and Li Wang because it monopolized its own planet fragments. Maybe Gukhan is very poor and there are no resources to share after the robbery. But the land is valuable. This is a fragment of the split blue star. There is only Gukhan on the continent, which is far away from the political center. There is no deep background and no strong people from Gukhan. Who wouldn't be tempted by such a big piece of delicious meat? Li Wang took action more than 10 years ago and sent his relatives to garrison Gukhan, and drew this piece of blue star land fragment into his sphere of influence. For more than 10 years, Gukhan is still so poor. Why? Isn't it because the current city lord sent most of the resources belonging to Gukhan to Li Wang? And now, Changtian Group, which was originally a hostile force of Li Wang, intervened and wanted to take this piece of fat meat from Li Wang and occupy it for itself. The more chaotic the lonely city is, the easier it is for Changtian Group to attack, and the more convenient it is to attack, the better it is to take it down at the lowest cost. As for the ordinary people in the lonely city, they are not within their consideration. What they want is land, not people. So the deputy city lord of Changjiao chose to cooperate with Tianhuo City, and work together to clear out the practitioners and high-end combat forces in the lonely city, so that the city will be in chaos again and again. The price paid for cooperating with Tianhuo City is a small planet fragment that does not originally belong to Changtian Group. It is a big profit to trade something that does not belong to them. Moreover, for them, 10 pieces of other planet fragments are not as good as a piece of blue star fragment. Blue star is the mother planet of mankind. It was full of humans before it was broken, and it is also the property of all mankind after it was broken. So far, no force has been heard of buying a piece of blue star fragment. Didn't the Dream Blue group of the Demon City buy a medium-sized Saturn fragment some time ago? Even if he spends 10 times more resources, he can't buy a piece of blue star fragment. The reason why Lonely City suffers so much is because it has a small population, only a few 100,000 people, and it is constantly decreasing every year. Think about it, if Lonely City has millions of people living in it, who would dare to move? Moving is a crime against humanity. What the Federation is most willing to do is to confiscate the family. Whoever is against humanity will die with his whole family. If Changtian and King Li are the superpowers of the entire Blue Star, then the Federation is the first force. Look at the deputy city lord of Changjiao, who is behind the Changtian group, and he only dares to make deals with Tianhuo City in the shadows, and dares not show any signs. Once someone leaves evidence, Changtian group will fall. In Yejing's memory, the first lesson in junior high school, the unified course of the entire Blue Star, teaches the most anti-human. You can imagine how much importance it has. The description of the crime against humanity is very simple, just one sentence. All acts of colluding with non-human races and endangering human races will be defined as crimes against humanity, including but not limited to interest disputes, hatred-driven and other conditions. Yejing was very glad that his father walked fast. According to the speed of the airship, it is estimated that he has reached the Imperial City now. Otherwise, no matter whether his father did it or not, he would be blamed. The sky curtain was closed, and the fire demon landed directly from above into the interior of the lonely city. The person who did this was really crazy. Yejing, who had no attachment to the lonely city, was furious. Is this something a normal person can do? Is he crazy? Above the leaky roof, there were constantly broken stones falling, and the dust splashed greatly reduced the vision in this area. In addition, the house was dark and there was no light on, so the level scale of the fire demon could not be seen clearly. Yejing put on the storage bracelet that he had taken off, and his hand flashed, and he held the dog beating stick tightly. He took this name, and originally wanted to hit people, but who would have thought that he would hit the fire demon? Roar! Before Yejing could make a move first, the fire demon rolled up a strong wind and rushed over. There are no fancy moves, just use the body to hit hard. The weapon of the low-level fire demon is its strong body burning with flames. And their shortcomings are also obvious: heavy, very heavy. Yejing just turned sideways and dodged. If the temperature of the flame was not too high, he could even hold the dog-beating stick horizontally and resist it head-on. With a backhand, a stick hit the back of the fire demon, without causing any damage, but it made his palm numb. It's so hard. Yejing smacked his lips, thinking that this kind of creature should not exist in this world. Its body is as hard as rock and covered with endless flames. The only weakness can only be touched by jumping up. It is said that the human form is the ultimate life form. Why is it so weak? When he got close to it, he also saw the scale of this fire demon clearly, the white 30 energy scale, not difficult. Not only did he see it clearly, but Huayu, who was looking for an opportunity, also saw it clearly. When she saw that it was only this level, she turned around and left without hesitation, leaving only one sentence to Yejing. I'll go outside to see how the other neighbors are doing. You can handle it yourself. Without any hesitation, before the voice fell, the figure was gone, leaving Yejing alone in a mess. Is it okay to abandon me like this? He felt that sometimes being trusted by others was a mistake. In such a daze, he didn't notice that the flames on the fire demon were ready. Waves of flames like waves burned from the fire demon and spread to the surroundings, and the first to bear the brunt was Yejing. The extremely high temperature hit Yejing's body, and he subconsciously released his spiritual energy to resist and protect his body from being burned by the flames. Although he could withstand the burning flames, the items in the room could not. The fire demon raged in his room, burning everything. Yejing's bed caught fire, the iron table was scalded red, and the raging fire set the whole room on fire. Damn it! Yejing cursed inwardly, feeling heartbroken. If this continued, it would not only be his room that would be affected, but his house. If a house worth hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones was burned, he felt that he could do anything. To be honest, this kind of low-level fire demon can only be used as cannon fodder in battle, but in terms of destructive power, it is really invincible at the same level. Yejing endured the scorching flames coming from the surroundings, and approached the fire demon's body in one step or two. He kicked his legs suddenly, jumped high, and stepped on the back of the fire demon. He ignored his burnt shoes and used the back of the fire demon as a stepping stone. He turned over and jumped into the air. His feet touched the ceiling and he was hanging upside down in the air. His body was strengthened by spiritual energy, so he could perform such a difficult action. It would be difficult for any ordinary person to complete it so smoothly. Yejing's body was only suspended upside down for a few tenths of a second before he fell down. The dog-beating stick in his hand pierced the crystal core of the fire demon and broke it with one blow. The body of the fire demon turned into nothingness and returned to the universe. The crystal core fell to the ground. Yejing didn't even look at it and rushed out of the room in a few steps. 1 second later, he ran in with a large basin of water. Put out the fire. I dare not read the comments. It's too scary and uncomfortable. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 45. After running back and forth for more than 10 times and struggling for a long time, Yejing finally put out the fire in his house and barely controlled the fire to one room. If the whole house was burned, he would have wanted to die. Although the fire was put out, this room could no longer be used. The roof collapsed, a big hole broke in the ceiling, the wall was burned black, the smoke smell lingered for a long time, and other items turned to ashes. At the edge, the wall that originally separated Yejing and Huayu's homes was also broken, and the girl's room was right in front of him. He just had to step over the rubble and walk a few steps to get there. Now that Huayu was not there and there was no one else, Yejing was very excited and wanted to go over and take a look, just to understand the layout of the opposite sex's room, nothing else. Unfortunately, he now knew that it was not the time to think about these things. Even his house was on fire, so what about other people? What about the entire lonely city? I dare not imagine. Yejing didn't even tidy up his room, and hurried out of the house. When he got out of the corridor, there was no obstruction to block his vision. Looking at the street, it was a mess. The originally dark night was completely lit up by the fire, and thick black smoke billowed up. The fire burned the city. The street in front of him already reflected the current situation of the entire lonely city. Buildings collapsed, fires spread, and several culprits were being besieged by practitioners. Fortunately, this place is not too remote, there are practitioners or pioneers. If there were only ordinary people, a fire demon would be enough to cholera a street. The practitioners were busy, and ordinary people were not idle either. Basins of water were continuously poured. Putting out the fire was the only thing they could do, especially when it was their own home. Xiaojing. Don't stand there stupidly. Come and help. Not far away, an uncle saw Yejing and called him to help. The uncle was holding a water hose in his hand, facing the fire in his own store. Behind him, two children, big and small, each holding a basin, were pouring water with great effort. His family runs a breakfast shop in the community. This breakfast shop is the source of income for their entire family. If it burns down, it will be the end of their lives. Yejing turned his eyes to the fire demon who was beaten up, and found that he didn't need his help, so he walked towards the uncle. This shop is the only breakfast shop near the community. When my father couldn't get up in the morning to cook, Yejing would eat breakfast in this shop. Now that my father is gone, if this breakfast shop burns down again, it will be terrible. Uncle Wang. I'll go get a water pipe. Yejing shouted at the uncle, and just as he was about to go to the water pipe to get a water pipe, he suddenly felt a chill coming from his side, and an incredible scene happened in front of him. The firelight is also light, and Yejing can clearly see his own shadow on the ground and the shadow of the nearby wall. However, a chill passed by him, and he saw the shadow of the wall on the ground sway slightly and move by itself. Twisting and bending, the shadow seemed to be detached from the wall, and was pulled out by force. Yejing was startled and just wanted to turn his head, but there was no time. Don't move. He heard a cold warning in his ears, and at the same time, a cylindrical object as hard as iron pressed against his back, which made him feel numb. This was a dangerous warning. Yejing's face changed, and he suppressed the shock in his heart and whispered, "Who are you?" When he spoke, his fingers were slightly bent, and he tried to touch the storage bracelet carefully to take out his dog beating stick, but he didn't expect that such a subtle movement would be discovered. The man behind him pushed the round object hard and said lightly, "Don't do those little tricks, guns don't have eyes, I don't mind a hole in your body, anyway, you won't die." Yejing's mouth twitched slightly. "Don't joke, where do the cultivation civilizations get guns? Don't think you can threaten me with a stick. Who told you that there are no firearms in the cultivation civilization?" The man behind him sneered, shook his wrist slightly, lowered the muzzle, and a slight muffled sound was heard. The bullet was fired in an instant, from the gap between Yejing's legs to the open space in front of him. It was still a pistol with a silencer. Yejing felt the vibration from his crotch, and cold sweat ran down his face instantly. He always thought this was a cultivation civilization, but he forgot that Blue Star was still an authentic technological era 100 years ago. And now, it is also half technology and half cultivation. His experience during this period of time has long made him forget that among the lethal weapons of this era, there are guns. "Do you believe it's a gun now?" Yejing said bitterly, "I believe it. Who are you?" The man behind him didn't answer, but asked, "Where is Yes Yongtian?" "Looking for Dad." "Damn." Yejing cursed inwardly. Just by this sentence, he knew which side the man behind him was from. It was obvious that he was a spy who had worked with Dad. "I didn't expect him to find me here. Dad has left Lonely City," Yejing said truthfully. He also understood in his heart that there was no need to risk his life to resist and escape. Even if he ran away, what would happen? He was still in Lonely City. It was too unwise to fight against such a group of people living in the shadows. The man behind him was silent after hearing Yejing's words, and then poked Yejing's back with a pistol, "Then follow me." The tone was very tough, as if he was giving an order. Yejing had no choice but to follow the command of the man behind him and got on a black car parked nearby. A few dozen meters away, Yejing discovered a very terrifying thing. The man behind him seemed to be invisible. Except for him, no one could see him. Was it because of the shadow? Yejing thought in his mind. The man behind him also appeared out of thin air before. He didn't even notice his breath at such a close distance. And at that time, the only change was the shadow. He got on a black car. There were two other people in the car. They were all wearing black robes and their faces were not revealed. The man behind Yejing also put down his gun. He was also wearing a black robe and his face could not be seen. These three people seemed to trust Yejing very much. After getting on the car, they didn't even cover their eyes and put away their pistols. There was no threat at all. But even so, Yejing didn't dare to think of running away. He could vaguely feel that the spiritual energy emitted by these three people was several times stronger than him. Even if it is not the underground palace realm, it is not something he can fight against. In the car, no one spoke, one person drove, two people closed their eyes. Yejing looked around, and looked out of the window. It was still horrible. The fire demon was raging, and mortals suffered. Not all ordinary people could be taken care of. Along the way, Yejing saw countless corpses with his excellent eyesight. Some were burned to charcoal, some were smashed by rubble and bloody, and so on, which made him feel uncomfortable. This was out of pity for the weak. Thank you all book friends for your recommendation votes and collections. I also read the comment area and wrote down some bugs and poison points. I will change them if I can. Fortunately, there are only 100,000 words. Thank you for the reward from Sha Diaobao. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin Ji Bayet. Chapter 46. Along the way, Yejing stopped looking out the window. His mental endurance was limited. In just a few days, he witnessed two bloody scenes, which had a great impact on his body and mind. Especially after knowing that Black Hand is a human being belonging to the same race, his attitude towards the world has greatly changed. It is not a peaceful world after all. The black car drove for more than half an hour, and there was silence inside the car for more than half an hour. Finally, it stopped in front of a shop. In more than half an hour, I didn't encounter the fire demon. It was as if the black car had bypassed the fire demon. But obviously, it reached the destination directly without avoiding any detours. This phenomenon was obviously because the fire demon had bypassed the black car. This made Yejing very curious. How on earth was it done? Out of curiosity, no one gave him an explanation. The two men in black robes on the black car did not move. The man who threatened Yejing with a gun said calmly, "Get out of the car." Yejing followed him out of the car and looked at the shop in front of him. It was tightly closed and very ordinary. There was a faint layer of dust on the corner of the door, as if it had not been opened for a long time. "Go in, someone wants to see you." The man in black robe opened the shop door casually, ignored Yejing, and walked in directly. Now that he was here, it was no longer possible to leave just because he wanted to. "Who wants to see me?" Yejing muttered, and followed him in. The shop was pitch dark, and the lights were not turned on. Perhaps he was afraid of being discovered, so it was quite secretive. Walking along the long corridor to the innermost part, the two stopped in front of the door of the innermost room. The man in black robe reached out and knocked on the door. "Enter." A hoarse voice came from the room. When the door opened, the man in black robe first stopped Yejing and glanced at Yejing's storage bracelet. Yejing hugged the storage bracelet directly and looked wary. "What are you doing?" "No." Now that his room is burned down, the contents of the storage bracelet are all his assets, and he must not hand them over. The man in black robe directly took out his pistol and pointed it at Yejing, and said in a cold tone, "Hand it over, or make a hole and hand it over again." Yejing was furious. Just as he was about to say something, he heard someone in the room talking. "Anzi, no need, let him come in." Anzi glanced at Yejing coldly, as if to warn him, took a step back and let the door open. Not to be outdone, Yejing glared back, walked into the room, and then saw the people inside. Without saying a word, he turned around and walked away. As he walked, he lowered his head and murmured, "I don't know him, I didn't see him. I don't know him, I didn't see him." Then Anzi forced him in with a gun. "Classmate Yejing, my name is Yejing." In the room, a middle-aged man sat on a chair, crossed his arms and placed them on the table. He looked at Yejing with dark and deep eyes and said lightly. Yejing smiled bitterly, "Principal, I didn't expect it to be you." Waves arose in his heart. The middle-aged man in front of him, the person who wanted to see him, or the person who had been cooperating with his father, turned out to be the principal of Gukhan High School. His brain was working rapidly, searching for this man's memory, but it was obvious that there was very little relevant information. He had only met the principal a few times, 6 times at the opening ceremony of each semester, and a few times by chance at school, but they only bowed their heads to say hello and never communicated with him. In my memory, the principal's strength is not very strong. It seems to be due to qualification issues. A mortal body cannot transform from a mortal body to a spiritual body. His cultivation level can only stay at the 9th level of human transformation state. No matter how much resources are spent, he cannot transform into a spiritual body. Promotion to the underground palace. The principal is not very powerful, but he has relied on extremely high political skills to secure his position as the principal of Gukhan High School. No one has been able to challenge him for more than 10 years. Such a big shot actually colluded with external forces in Gukhan, which was beyond Yejing's expectation. The principal's face was indifferent, and he looked at Yejing. The invisible pressure was released towards Yejing, making Yejing a little out of breath, as if a huge stone was pressing on his chest. "Has your father left Gukhan?" the principal said calmly. Yejing nodded. "Well, just this afternoon, there are records that can be checked." To be honest, Dad had already left. To be so decisive, the principal frowned and murmured, and then said, "Tell me the access code of Tianmu." The principal, who has been in a high position for a long time, speaks like an order. He is not asking Yejing, but ordering Yejing. Although this sentence made Yejing feel uncomfortable, he was unable to resist and could only shake his head. "I don't know, don't you know the access code of Tianmu? Isn't the current fire demon invading the city because Tianmu was closed by you?" At this time, Yejing's address to the principal had changed from you to you. He cannot be in awe of a person who has no bottom line. This is also his moral integrity and bottom line. The principal sneered. "Who said we closed the canopy this time? Only your father knows the permission password for the canopy." "What? No." Yejing was shocked. There was no need for the principal to lie to him. If they weren't spies like them, who were they? Could it be that there are forces other than Changtian Group and King Li who want to fish in troubled waters? The principal looked at Yejing, with a trace of murderous intent flashing in his eyes. "Now that your father has left Gukhan, it means that he has no use value. Then if you don't know the access password of Tianmu, do you know what the consequences will be?" Yejing lowered his head and remained silent. He was worthless and knew the important password, so there was only a dead end. He knew from the beginning that his father, as the former city lord, had paid a painful price to defend the lonely city. He lost all his cultivation and became disabled in his legs. Then what? Would he choose to cooperate with hostile forces just for a little spiritual stone? Impossible. Why? It's obvious. A useless man, and a son, who holds unique authority in his hands. Without strength, it is impossible to protect everything. His father chose to give up the lonely city and choose his son. See through but don't say it. So when his father left the lonely city, Yejing did not choose to stop him. And now that he has seen the identity of the principal, he also knows the location and the route. Now there are only 2 ways in front of Yejing. 1. Die. 2. Cooperate. As long as they choose to cooperate, they are grasshoppers on the same rope. If one of them gets into trouble, they will all fall. Yejing sighed secretly. He had been holding back a rage in his heart since he came in, a rage of being bullied by others. Strength. Strength. It's still strength. Yejing took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in his heart, and said calmly, I know, I will ask Tianmu for the permission password, give me 3 days. The principal frowned, thought for a while, and replied, okay, come by yourself at this time in 3 days, and there will be other people at that time, and I will introduce them to you. After that, the principal pointed to the door, indicating that Yejing could go out. Yejing nodded expressionlessly and turned to leave. Outside the door, the dark man who had been on standby saw Yejing walk out safely, so he didn't care about him anymore and went into the room by himself. Yejing walked outside along the dim corridor, with a fierce murderous intent in his eyes. This was the first time he wanted to kill someone since he came to this world. At any cost. Not for Guken, but for himself. 3 days later, catch them all. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin Bayet. Chapter 47. If it was their interests that drove them to betray Guken, then Yejing had nothing to say. He didn't even want to care. He just needed to practice peacefully, then take the Guken College entrance examination, and get the qualification to go to the Magic City Academy. Regardless of whether he could enter the Magic City Academy in the end, he might never return to Guken again. So which faction Guken belonged to had nothing to do with him. He had no ability and no right to care. But now it was different. One side involved his father, and his father involved him. In the end, his father ran away, leaving him a mess. What could he do? He couldn't solve the problem with his father, so he could only solve this side. And their approach made Yejing very uncomfortable. The feeling of being high and mighty, the feeling of forced orders, made it seem like someone owed them something. They gave 2 options. The first and most decisive one was to directly kill Yejing and silence him. For those who do things in the shadows, it is most taboo to be exposed to the light. Once their identities are exposed, what awaits them is the federal wanted order. The second option is to join them, become one of them, and share the stolen money. Yejing doesn't need to do anything, just take out the permission password of Tianmu from his father's mouth. And they are sure that Yejing will choose the second option before letting him in directly. After all, Yejing is still in the lonely city, and in the lonely city, he can't escape from their palms. One is in the light and the other is in the dark. How can he resist? But they forgot one thing. Yejing is 18 years old this year. He is a young man. Every young man has such a state, that is, rebellious psychology. What do you want me to do? I won't do it. What do you don't want me to do? I will do it. I'll piss you off. They thought about controlling Yejing. And Yejing was thinking about how to kill them. When he went back, he was also sent back by the black car. He didn't say anything, didn't tell him anything, and let Yejing get off the car. When Yejing returned to his community, the fire demon that descended on their street had been cleared and the fire was completely extinguished. Neighbors were busy cleaning up the mess, the injured went to the hospital, and the uninjured cleared the road. It might be the fire demon that descended here, but there were no casualties, so no wailing could be heard. Yejing looked up at the sky. The fire had been suppressed, the pale white sky curtain with a bright glow had been opened, and the thick black smoke had dissipated. This time, the fire demon made a huge noise, but it was suppressed so easily. The whole process lasted only more than an hour. This made Yejing feel that this time it was not like a blazing fire burning the city, but more like coming to mess up and toss people. A large number of shrimp soldiers and crab generals were airdropped from Tianhuo City, and it took a long time to close the sky curtain for a short while. It was just burning a city. This made Yejing feel very confused, as if he was playing a joke. After entering the community, Yejing did not go home directly, but leaned against the wall and watched the black car go away. When the black car disappeared from Yejing's sight, he left the community again, leaned against the wall, and entered a secluded path. When Yejing came out of the shop, he had been thinking about how to kill those people. A head-on battle is definitely not possible. With his strength, he can't even beat one person, let alone a group of people. Apart from a head-on battle, the only way is to sneak up on them. Yejing thought about it and racked his brains to think about how to kill people who are much stronger than him. Along the way, he thought about what he could use and what he had. Passive skills. Don't make a fuss, the only trump card is still on CD, but it will cool down by then. Use synthesis to make a wave of poison? He might be able to make it, just find a few piles of highly toxic herbs, but if he makes it, people can't drink it honestly. Use combination? This is even more unrealistic and consumes the most spirit stones. The combination of 2 items is useless, and the combination of 3 items costs 1000 spirit stones. This is not something he can afford at this stage. What else is there? Something with devastating destructive power that can make the final decision. There is always a fragment flashing in Yejing's mind. He remembered it, but forgot it. Principal. School. Training ground. Training machine. Energy core. Yejing's mind was hit hard, it was the energy core. A small energy core is placed in the training machine in the school training ground. It is used to provide uninterrupted energy to the training machine. It contains an extremely huge amount of energy, enough to raise the entire school to the ground. The energy that can blow up the entire school must be able to kill a group of people in the transformation realm and the underground palace realm, right? The maximum bearing value of that small energy core is 1000. Only students dare to touch it. A teacher with stronger strength can poke it with a finger. It is extremely dangerous. Once Yejing made up his mind, he didn't plan to change it. When he came out of the community, he directly flashed into a remote path. This was the way he often took to take a shortcut to school. He didn't expect to use it this time. Although they agreed to go to school to steal the energy core in 3 days, Yejing didn't plan to go to school to steal the energy core in 2 days. Now the lonely city is in chaos, and the school is probably the same. If he doesn't take action now, when will he take action? Yejing was cautious along the way, his steps were light and slow, for fear of being seen. If he wanted to do such a crazy thing, he had to be careful, and there must not be any loopholes. Not long after, Yejing came to the outside of the school wall, looked around, and saw no figure. He put his ear against the wall and listened to the sound inside. Then he jumped over the wall and entered the school. His feet cooperated with his legs to relieve the force, and he landed easily without making any sound. But he didn't dare to move, so he could only squat and lurk in the same place. When he climbed in, he saw that there were security guards patrolling in the school. This was also his first time to visit the school at night. He didn't know that there were security guards patrolling at night, and he didn't even know that there were security guards in the school. What should he do? Yejing frowned, and his dark and shiny eyes looked ahead. The scattered security guards blocked his way to the training ground. Looks like I can only rely on luck. Yejing secretly made up his mind, opened the furnace in his mind, and directly exchanged all the spirit stones in the storage bracelet for energy. 2000 spirit stones were exchanged from the Pioneers Guild, and 1500 spirit stones were looted from Wang Hao's bracelet. This was all his assets. A total of 3500 energy points. The energy bar at the bottom of the furnace also increased slightly, about 7 or 8%. Give me a chance. Draw some passive skills that can be used now. 10 consecutive draws. Begin. I'm only 10 digits away from investing to get some coins. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 48. Through these days of fighting, Yejing discovered a very sad fact. Among all his passive skills, except for Sorrow of War, a super skill with a 3-day cooldown, the others are useless. You can even call it useless. Whether it's double hit or bleeding, the triggering probability is only 10%. It's too difficult. A wave of enemies are dead and you can't even see the skills. Who can bear this? Moreover, he also discovered the shortcoming of passive skills, that is, there are limitations. Or it can be said that there are prerequisites before it can be triggered. The limitation of Sorrow of War is sustaining fatal damage when it is not fatally injured, it is just a decoration. The limitation of God of War combo is uninterrupted attack. If the attack pauses for 10 seconds, the combo will be recalculated. Once Yejing's combo fails, the God of War combo can only be regarded as a small buff that increases strength and destructive power by 1%. The limitation of bleeding is the probability of triggering and the enemy having blood. This bleeding has been the most uncomfortable thing for Yejing in the past 2 days. It has never been triggered once. Why? Fire Demon Root. Book. At once. Without blood. The limit of double hit is trigger probability. Although it only has a 10% triggering probability, it is also the easiest to use for Yejing. With the smallest restrictions you may not always be able to get a lucky hit. From the above, it seems that Yejing has too much confidence in not including passive skills. Looking at the skill bar is quite comfortable, but the actual usage rate is simply too low. Even if you use 1,000 passive skills on it, it will be useless if you don't use it. Give Dad one that can be used now. Yejing squatted in the corner of the school, lowered his head and prayed. This was a very important step, so he couldn't fail. The 10 consecutive draws begin. The energy of the furnace instantly dropped by 1,000, and the fortune wheel began to rotate slowly. As the wheel started, Yejing's heart also rose. Extracting skills, blank. Extracting skills, blank. Extracting skills, blank. The 7th time. Extracting skills, green. Acquire skills, bleeding. The 10th time. Bleeding while extracting skills. Yejing, dot. He. See what I drew? Bleed. Look how many of me are bleeding? 2. Alhum Shibuya. Yejing was so angry that he could obtain the passive skills repeatedly. Every time he drew a skill, he got something new, which made him always think that it was impossible to obtain it repeatedly. He never thought that the skill could be drawn repeatedly. No wonder. As the most practical function, extraction only requires 100 energy each time, so it turns out that there is a trap here. He thought that the blank space on the turntable was the biggest pit. He could eat 100 spiritual stones and 100 energy raw, but nothing would come out. Now he understands that blank can only be regarded as a big pit. Repeat acquisition is such a crater. That is to say, the furnace cannot be unloaded, otherwise Yejing will say no more. He has thrown in almost 10,000 spiritual stones, big and small, and then what? It's useless. Without this furnace, he can use 10,000 spiritual stones to buy cultivation potions to improve his cultivation. Without this furnace, he could use 10,000 spirit stones to buy sword skills and then unleash them handsomely. Take a look at this broken furnace. It doesn't allow you to use active skills, and it also tries other tricks to steal money. Which company made this? A certain penguin? It doesn't quite look like it. A certain penguin's purpose is you can become stronger by spending money, which is obviously not consistent. A certain Yi? It should be the case. The tenet of Yi is that Krypton gold may not necessarily make you stronger. Yejing looked at the 2 bleeding icons in the skill bar with an expressionless face, silently deceiving himself in his heart. Fortunately, he drew two identical green ones, so if he drew two identical golden ones, he might quit the game. Yejing exhaled a breath of turbid air. What else could he do? Let's continue. 1,000 energies were swallowed up by the furnace, and the wheel of luck turned again. Yejing shouted in his heart, hoping to get something good, such as flicker, speed walk, void walk, time stop, etc. Extracting skills, blank. Extracting skills, blank. The fifth time. Extracting skills, blue. Acquire skills, invisible wings. Extracting skills, blank. The 10th time. Extracting skills, blank. Blue skills. Yejing's heart trembled. It must not be a useless skill. Invisible wings, when you are close to a wall, grass, or other covering object, if you remain completely still for 3 seconds, you will enter the invisible state, move to reveal yourself, and block the sense of breath that is one level higher than the host, consuming 1% of the body's spiritual energy every second. Invisible. Yejing shook his head vigorously to shake those unhealthy thoughts out of his mind. Is now the time to think about such things? No. If you want to go back, think again. Yejing set his sights on invisible wings. This skill can be said to be very restrictive. The first one can only be triggered near obstacles. The second article is that it can only be triggered after being in a state of complete stillness for 3 seconds. He doesn't understand the concept of complete stillness. Anyway, you can't make people's hearts still, right? Article 3, you can only stand in place and cannot move. If you move, you must show your body shape. Article 4, it is useless in front of people who are a lot taller than him. The body is invisible, but the breath is still there. Article 5, consume 1% of your own spiritual energy per second, which means that when he is full of spiritual energy, he can only last for 100 seconds. Let's make do with it. So many restrictions made Yejing sigh slightly. Although it is not easy to use, he can only make do with it now. Fortunately, the school security guards are ordinary people, as long as they hide from their sight. Yejing prepared to try the skill triggering conditions first, squatting in the same place without moving. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Still visible state. Yejing raised his eyebrows, then stopped breathing, and his body did not move. 3 seconds later, the whole body disappeared from the spot, and even he could not see it. It is not enough to just keep the body still, but you have to stop breathing, but this is better, so that it will not be triggered casually. Just as I imagined, the objects on my body also became invisible. Yejing shook his arms and moved his neck again, but did not exit the invisible state, which means that there are no restrictions on other parts of the body except moving his feet. Then, he took out the dog beating stick from the storage bracelet and put it back in. He tried several times but failed to exit the invisible state. Finally, Yejing moved his feet lightly, his body materialized, and he exited the invisible state. It is impossible to stop updating, and it is impossible to reduce the number of words. Please recommend. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 49. Yejing quietly squatted in the bushes by the wall, carefully poked his head out, and looked at the security team walking around, feeling a little anxious. How could there be so many people? He squatted for a while, and saw 4 teams of 20 people patrolling the school. Each team was led by a cultivator and 4 ordinary citizens. He also saw a familiar face. The school's physical education teacher was also in the patrol team. At this time, Yejing realized that the lonely city was in chaos because of the fire demon's fierce night attack. As the only high school in the lonely city, someone must come to protect it. It is estimated that the physical education teacher was a strong man pulled by the leaders. After all, he was still a single dog in his 40s. It seems that I have to avoid the physical education teacher. Yejing thought to himself. The physical education teacher had just broken through to the underground palace a few days ago. He was not much ahead of Yejing, but he still had to be careful. If he showed any flaws, it would be no joke. Yejing was very patient. He squatted in the bushes by the wall for more than half an hour, curled up, not sticking his head out, just listening to the sound. Once there was a sound coming towards the side, he stopped breathing and entered the invisible wing state, and then appeared after the sound faded away. After more than half an hour, he also figured out the pattern of the patrol team. The team led by the physical education teacher was a team. Starting from the school gate, the first and second teams of the 4 teams started patrolling from the left side of the school gate, and the third and fourth teams started patrolling from the right side of the school gate. Then, after circling around the school, they returned to the original place, repeating the cycle. The school was also big enough, and a patrol took about 20 minutes. When the 4 patrol teams circled again, Yejing moved. He climbed over the wall to enter the school. His current position was on the right side in front of the school gate, and the training ground was behind the school. He needed to cross the main teaching building from here to reach the training ground. This was also his first time stealing. No, can a cultivator be called stealing? At best, it was just taking without permission. Yejing followed the wall. When the patrol team walked away, he started to move. He was nervous and his steps were very light. To be honest, he was quite nervous and a little ashamed. As a high-ranking time traveler, he had to steal for the first time to do something big. Shameful. Along the wall, Yejing bent over, tiptoed, and ran quickly without making a loud noise. Because the patrol team had just passed, his speed was not hindered. In just a few minutes, he arrived at the main teaching building, which was where he had classes. By passing the main teaching building, he could already see the training hall. It was dark and there was no light, but it did not hinder Yejing from moving forward. After all, such a large building was placed there, and he just had to walk over. After a few more minutes, the road was unobstructed. Yejing followed the wall of the training hall and walked to the gate of the training hall. He stared blankly at the electronic lock on the gate, frowning for a long time without saying a word. No one told me that I had to learn how to unlock the door to steal things. I never forgot that the training hall had a lock. He didn't know that every time their class came to the training hall, the old professor would open the door first and force them to go in, including Yejing. In addition, Yejing had never come to the training hall again, not alone, so how could he know that there was a lock? How could he only know the password of the electronic lock? Yejing looked at the electronic lock that emitted a dim fluorescence with a gloomy face. After thinking about it, he gently clicked a few times to see if he could open it. Enter password, 666,666. Wrong password, the password is 12 digits. Yejing's mouth twitched, at least he knew one condition, and then clicked a few more times. Enter password, 6666, 666, 6666. Wrong password, the password contains numbers and Chinese characters. Yejing was not panicked, he knew another condition, and he was very close to cracking the password. Enter password, 66666666666. Wrong password, the password cannot be so simple, please try again, thank you. Are you an artificial intelligence? Yejing's face was dark, and he was about to try again, but he heard footsteps coming towards him, which frightened him so much that he quickly put his back against the wall and stopped breathing. Trigger the invisible wings and enter the invisible state. How could there be someone in the middle of the night? You must have heard it wrong. Impossible. My ears have been trained, I am sure I heard the keystrokes, a total of 30 times. How can a fool come here to press keys in the middle of the night? Yejing thought silently, there really is a fool who would come here to press keys in the middle of the night. In a blink of an eye, two figures appeared in front of Yejing, two ordinary people in security uniforms. They walked to the electronic lock, only one step away from Yejing. One of the thin security guards looked at the electronic lock and laughed. "Look, I said it's impossible, there are other people here besides the two of us." The other fat security guard shook his head solemnly. "No. This electronic lock is still bright and has not dimmed, which means that there was another person here a few seconds ago. And he was trying to open the electronic lock." After the fat security guard finished speaking, he took out a thin transparent film from somewhere, printed it on the electronic lock, and then peeled it off and shone it with a flashlight. "Look. This is a fresh fingerprint. Only 4 keys were pressed, which are Lu and 6. Yejing was hiding at the side, his face was calm, but he was panicking in his heart. "You are so awesome, why don't you become a detective? Your profession is the urban soldier king, right? Hiding in the school to show off, right?" The thin security guard also saw those clear fingerprints, and without saying a word, he contacted other people directly. Something happened outside the training venue. The speed of his hand was so fast that Yejing had no time to react. When Yejing saw the thin security guard take out his mobile phone, it was too late, and the contact notice had been sent. "Damn. You are also a Special Forces king, right?" Yejing cursed inwardly. What else can you say after being exposed? He showed up directly, and his left and right hands came out at the same time, and knocked them out with 2 hand knives. "It really looks like a double-hit hand knife to kill you." Yejing's teeth were itching. He had reached the door safely. Who would have thought that 2 ordinary people would be exposed, making him angry and depressed. Time is running out. In a few minutes, the patrol teams of the whole school will gather here. By then, he will not be able to escape even if he has wings. There is no time to crack this broken code. Yejing decisively took out the dog-beating stick and smashed it on the electronic lock. Bang! It didn't break. Try again. Bang 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 bang. Trigger the double attack. This attack triples the damage. The lock is broken, and the door is open. I just got home to open the code, so I can't stop updating. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 50. At this time, Yejing didn't care about anything and just broke into the room. If he failed, he would explode. After entering the training hall, Yejing took out his mobile phone and turned on the flashlight. In order to hide himself, he walked in the dark before. Now it's better to be exposed, at least he can walk with the lights on. The training venue is very large, with 5 rooms side by side in the innermost part. Yejing has never paid attention to the training venue and has no idea where the training machines are placed. What should I do? What else can I do? Look for them one by one. Yejing first walked quickly to the first large room, which was tied with an iron chain made of fanti. This thing is easier to smash than an electronic lock. Snap, 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 snap. After 7 consecutive hits, the iron chain was directly broken and the door was pushed open. After entering, Yejing took the flashlight and shone it, then turned around and came out. This is the men's toilet. When he walked to the second large room, he smashed it again. Yejing didn't know when someone would come, so he could only unlock it as quickly as possible. What is the fastest speed? Violent unlocking. The iron chain slid to the ground, making a crisp sound that echoed in the training city. Yejing walked in and came out in less than a second. This is the women's restroom. His face was dark. Which cleaning lady locked the restroom? Isn't this just making trouble? The third big room, smash the lock, push the door, go in, come out, a set of simple and clear procedures, extremely fast, almost completed in 10 seconds. This is the men's locker room. Yejing turned his head to look at the big room next to him. This time he was smart and directly skipped the fourth big room. It was obvious that the men's locker room must be next to the women's locker room. This was his only chance to step into the women's locker room openly, but unfortunately there was no time. Yejing didn't even look at the women's locker room, and resolutely walked to the fifth big room. Smash the lock, push the door, go in. Then he didn't come out. After Yejing went in, he took a flash and saw it, and immediately he was sure in his heart, this is it. Under the flash, he saw wooden stakes, stone slabs, iron balls, cushions, and even human models. This is the warehouse of the training venue. Yejing used the flash to sweep the warehouse and saw the training machine in the corner. The energy core on the training machine emitted a deep red light, which was very conspicuous in this dark warehouse. Yejing stepped forward quickly, stood in front of the training machine, put his hands on the energy core, gently put it on, and then picked it up. Can't lift it? The energy core was fixed on the training machine and connected into one. Yejing was already anxious at this time. He had heard footsteps and voices outside the training venue. If the energy core cannot be taken down at this time, everything will be in vain. The school will not give him a second chance to borrow the energy core. Don't stop. Yejing was ruthless at this moment. He held the dog beating stick tightly in his right hand and inserted it from the hollow where the energy core and the training machine were connected above. There is a template for testing values there. I can't care so much. I'm going to lift it up. Yejing is going to lift the energy core out. The training machine is expensive, and this expensiveness is not only in the energy core, but also in the sophisticated design. The template that displays the numerical value is closely connected to the energy core. When the attack falls on the center landing point on the training machine, the attack value will be transmitted to the energy core and finally displayed on the numerical template. And Yejing's move is no longer just to take the energy core, but to destroy the entire training machine. The handle of the dog beating stick is in Yejing's hand, and the head of the stick is pushed into the hollow and hits the numerical template, forming a fulcrum. Then, lift it up. Lift it up. Lift it up. Yejing doesn't use too much strength, because on his status bar, God of War combo has begun to stack, which means that his current action is an effective attack. Since it is an effective attack, it is possible to trigger double attack. Once double attack is triggered to attack the energy core, he will die. After all, the golden flash of War of Sorrow that resists fatal attacks is still cooling down. Quick! Everyone, go in and search. Go in and search. Go check what's missing. I'm going to lose so much money. Not far away, there was a voice of exasperation, followed by the sound of running in the training hall. This voice made Yejing even more anxious, and he couldn't help but increase the strength in his hands. Snap! It's coming down. Yejing's face lit up, and he directly put the energy core into the storage bracelet, then quietly hid in the corner, held his breath, and stilled his body. After 3 seconds, he entered the invisible state. The next second after he entered the invisible state, a security guard rushed in and scanned the warehouse with a flashlight. He didn't see any figures, but saw the training machine. There was a missing energy core on it. The security guard opened his mouth wide, thinking it was over. How much money would it cost to match it? He immediately turned around and went out to report. The physical education teacher stood at the gate of the training hall with his hands behind his back and a gloomy face, and his feet were on the electronic lock that Yejing smashed. Report. The lock of the men's restroom was broken, no one was found, and nothing was missing. Report. The lock of the women's restroom was broken, no one was found, and nothing was missing. The PE teacher listened to the report coldly and breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that nothing was lost. A few locks were not worth much money. I can afford it. Report. The lock of the men's locker room was broken, no one was found, and nothing was lost. Report. The lock of the women's locker room is intact. Hearing these reports, the PE teacher's face eased slightly. He didn't care what kind of thieves, as long as nothing was lost. After all, he was stationed in the school now. If the little thief stole something under his nose, he would not be able to get away with it and could only compensate for the school's losses. If it was a thief with stronger strength than him, it would be another matter, but when he looked at the electronic lock under his feet, he knew that the thief's cultivation was not high, and he was not even a cultivator. If something was lost, he would definitely pay for it. Just when the PE teacher breathed a sigh of relief, a security guard ran over with a panicked look on his face. The PE teacher glanced at him, frowned and asked, "What's wrong? So panicked?" The security guard pointed to the warehouse behind him and stuttered, "Warehouse, warehouse, something was lost in the warehouse." The PE teacher's face did not change. What was lost? He didn't know that there were such things as training machines in the warehouse. He thought the warehouse was filled with sundries and waste, so he didn't panic. However, when he heard the next sentence, he was completely blown up. The security guard trembled and said, "The energy core on the training machine was pried away." What? The PE teacher's face changed drastically, and he disappeared from the spot with a swish, and rushed into the warehouse the next second. Then he saw the training machine without the energy core, and the numerical template with a few cracks. Instantly, the heart stopped, the brain was congested, and the eyes went black. The PE teacher fainted directly on the ground. Before he fainted, there was only one thought in his mind. It's over. How much money will I have to pay for the figures? Thanks to Saint Mountain for the reward. Thank you for the recommendation votes from all book friends. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin G. Bayet. Chapter 51. Leader. Leader. Several ordinary security guards saw the PE teacher fainted on the ground, and rushed forward to surround him, calling his soul and pinching his reine jaune before waking him up. The PE teacher straightened his upper body, sat on the ground without any image, took a breath, and looked at the training machine again. In an instant, he felt that he was going to explode. His face turned from dark to pale, and then to red. He pointed outside the warehouse door tremblingly and roared, "Search! Even if the whole school is overturned, we must search for that thief." He didn't dare to look at the damaged training machine again, for fear that his heart couldn't bear it and he would faint again. The security guards who formed a circle saw that the PE teacher was angry, and didn't dare to say anything. They ran away one by one, and in an instant, the PE teacher was the only one left in the warehouse. "Oh, that's not right." And Yejing? Yejing was huddled in a corner, motionless. To be honest, when he saw the PE teacher fainted, he almost laughed, but when he felt the spiritual energy in his body quickly disappearing, he couldn't laugh even if he wanted to. 80%. 79%. 78%. Time passed by second, and the security guards were all out of focus, but there was still a physical education teacher catching his breath in the warehouse, which made him more and more anxious. He couldn't help but curse in his heart, what kind of teacher is such a poor tolerance? Go home and farm. When only about 50% of the spiritual energy in Yejing's body was lost, he saw the physical education teacher move. The physical education teacher got up from the ground, his eyes were dull, and he kept calculating something in his mouth. A month's salary is 5,000 spiritual stones, and a year's salary is 60,000 spiritual stones. A training machine costs millions of spiritual stones, and a small energy core costs hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones. I can't afford to pay. Report if you can catch it, and run away if you can't catch it. These words were repeated several times, and the physical education teacher seemed to have made up his mind. The momentum of the whole person changed. He never looked at the training machine again and turned around and left the warehouse. At this time, there was only about 30% of the spiritual energy in Yejing's body, and he couldn't hold on for long. When he noticed that the PE teacher had left the training hall and could no longer hear footsteps, he exited the invisible state and leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. His forehead was full of sweat in stillness. Yejing felt the loss of spiritual energy in his body, and every second was torture. At that time, he had begun to think about the retreat after being exposed. What if the PE teacher had not left before he appeared? No way. But fortunately, just when Yejing was helpless, the PE teacher left. A strong sense of weakness came from Yejing's body. This might be the sequelae caused by the rapid loss of spiritual energy in his body. He was not in a hurry to leave. After all, everyone was gone now, and no one knew that the thief had been in the warehouse. Yejing leaned against the wall and took out the deep red energy core in his hand. His eyes stared at it as if he was looking at a rare treasure, and he couldn't take his eyes off it. This thing is worth hundreds of thousands. Yejing knew that the energy core was expensive, but he didn't expect it to be so outrageously expensive. Hundreds of thousands. He was extremely entangled in his heart. Was it too extravagant to use hundreds of thousands to blow up a group of enemies? Hundreds of thousands could greatly shorten his growth time. Hundreds of thousands could allow him to spin the lucky wheel thousands of times. Hundreds of thousands could even allow the furnace to jump to unlock functions. It would be a lie to say that he was not tempted. He hesitated for a long time, but still gritted his teeth, resisted the temptation, and threw the energy core back into the storage bracelet. Can't move. This is a fixed property. First, he has no place to sell it, and he can't find a seller who can eat him. Regular shops may not accept such unknown things, especially such a precious energy core. Second, after selling it, the gains will be very large, but the possibility of exposure is greater. It is estimated that the next day, all the practitioners in the city will know that the high school has lost an energy core. How dare he sell it? The possibility of being robbed by the thieves is too great. Third, he is still in Gukhan. He can't take such a big risk with his future. Once he is discovered, he will definitely go to jail for stealing hundreds of thousands of things. He just doesn't know how many years he will be in jail. Once he goes to jail, his life will be ruined. Fourth, and most importantly, the energy core is the only way he can think of to eliminate the group of enemies. Yejing wiped his saliva very calmly. This energy core cannot be moved. Since it can't be moved, it has nothing to do with the rain girl. But Yejing turned his head and put his eyes on the central landing point on the training machine again. It was made of 5th-level monster fur. Although he didn't know the price of 5th-level monster fur, he knew one thing: it must be very expensive. Even if it can't be sold, it can be used as a material for synthesis or combination. Anyway, the current principal has betrayed Gukhan. There's nothing wrong with me taking the things he bought. Yejing muttered to himself, and his hands had already touched the 5th-level monster fur. Although he didn't know how many times it had been attacked, the surface was still soft and smooth, and it felt particularly good to touch. Tear. Yejing pulled the 5th-level monster fur off the training machine and put it in the bracelet, and then his eyes were still on the training machine. There is no difference between taking a little and taking all, right? Huh? Is this made of mithril? Take it apart. Wow! This spring is actually black gold? Take it apart. Tisk, the synthetic steel bracket is really bad, forget it, just make do with it. After a while, Yejing took the training machine apart from top to bottom, and looked at the training machine that was already in a mess, and he smiled with satisfaction. At this time, the weakness in his body also subsided a lot, and it was time to leave. Yejing first explored the surrounding atmosphere, and after finding that there was no one, his figure flashed, and he left the training venue and returned the same way. He encountered several searches along the way, but they were all ordinary people, and he didn't even need to hide his figure to avoid them. Not long after, he stood under the wall where he had climbed when he came in, bent his legs, and climbed out again. The physical education teachers and security guards who were still searching the school didn't know that the thieves they were looking for had already run away. I don't know how long it took. The physical education teacher appeared in the warehouse again. He looked at the training machine that was already in a mess with a dull face, his chest heaving, obviously very angry. Finally, the PE teacher silently took out his phone and decisively ordered an airship ticket to fly to the border town immediately. From then on, no one saw the PE teacher. A few days later, rumors spread in the lonely city that the PE teacher stripped the entire training machine, harvested millions of spirit stones, and escaped from the lonely city. It's evening, and I still have recommendations. Thanks to Emperor Zun 2018, and Sue's reward, thank you.